Welcome back to another episode of Ask Zach. I am here with our friend Micah Julian. Micah is currently the missions intern here at Placerita Bible, as well as is working on his THM at Union School of Theology. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And so we are so glad to have him here on the show, where we can ask him a little bit about missions. So my first question, Micah, is when we think of missions, all Christians should have a heart for evangelizing. All Christians should want those who are lost to hear the gospel. Yet so often we can be a little confused on what is a missionary. Am I a missionary because I shared the gospel with my next door neighbor? Are only missionaries those who are abroad?
Yeah, so missionaries go abroad to areas where either there's a particular need for churches to be strengthened, for leaders to be trained, church leaders to be trained. Or to even to areas that we would call more like frontier areas where the gospel's likely never been heard or hardly ever been heard. And so even though sometimes people will try to say, we're all missionaries, I would say no, there's still a specific calling to be a missionary. It's not something that every Christian does. However, all Christians should be involved in at least supporting missionaries.
Absolutely. All Christians are evangelists, not all Christians are missionaries.
Correct.
So with that then, all of us have this burden to proclaim the gospel to the lost. How then do we know if we are called to go to these unreached people groups or to these churches who need help?
Yeah, that's a great question. And one that I think many of you might ask at some point in your lives. So one, I would say you got to look at some objective factors. You got to be someone that knows the word really well, that has a great prayer life, that is just a person that's being sanctified, a person that is holy. You also have to be affirmed by your local church. You don't want to be in a situation where you're going out by yourself. That's not healthy. That's not a biblical idea. Be sent by your local church and be affirmed by your elders. You want full backing of the elder team at your local church. And then I think there's other practical considerations to take into consideration. So, for example, do you function well in a cross-cultural environment?
Yeah.
Have you been on missions trips? Have you had that experience abroad? How have you enjoyed it? And so I think too, and this goes for all of ministry, but you really just want to have a burning desire to the point where you're saying there's nothing else you could see yourself doing.
Yeah, that's super helpful. So for all of you who are considering the possibility of being called to be a missionary, number one, do you have a burning desire to share the gospel and you can't picture doing anything else? And if that's the case, then ask those around you. Could you picture me being a missionary? Talk to your elders, to your pastors of your local church, and then from there, go and get involved in missions. Micah, tell them a little bit about some opportunities they can have to get involved in missions here at PBC.
Yeah, so every year we do several trips to go support our missionaries and to just help them in proclaiming the glory of God abroad. And so this year we've got 3 teams. We're going to Utah, we're going to Brazil, and we're going to Italy. So those are great opportunities. If you're a believer and missions is something you want to explore, I encourage you highly to go on one of those trips.
Absolutely. And if you guys have any more questions about missions, find Micah or continue to pray to the Lord that he would continue to guide your heart as you grow in your burden for the lost. Thanks for tuning in, guys.